it's Melissa, and welcome back to another Friday Reads and Rambles. We are going to start with the things I've been reading the last week or so, and then I'm going to have a normal little rambly chat with you. The books I've been reading this past week. I've started a reread of Lord of the Rings. I haven't read it in so long, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. And it's just perfect for the winter season, in my opinion. I'm listening to it on audiobook this time. It's probably going to take me at least 3 months to listen to it, because altogether, with like the 3 different volumes, I think the audiobook of Lord of the Rings is like over 60 hours. It's long. But I'm loving that kind of like gather around the fireplace type storytelling. It also feels very nostalgic to me. I am here for the songs. I know that's something that like a lot of people like put them off Tolkien, like all of he has a lot of very intricate world building, including like pub songs and like fireside songs, and like I am here for it. I'm loving it. I think I'm about a little over 4 hours into the audiobook, and they are still in the Shire. It's been so long since I've read it that I kind of forgot how long they're in the Shire, like how long it takes for them to get out of the Shire. I'm not complaining. I'm loving it. But I'm like, oh my God, we are 4 hours into this book and they haven't left the Shire yet. So yeah, very much enjoying that audiobook. Oh yes, the next thing. I am doing a buddy read of The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. Buddy reading this with Keeley from a Bibliophile's journey. I'll link her below. But this is set on this like world called Winter, and there's no like separate sexes or separate genders of the like humans who live here. And they like change sex in order to mate. And then when they're not mating, I think they're like somewhere in the middle. We still don't 100% understand how like gender and sex work in this book. But the next chapter is called The Question of Sex. So we are hopeful, Keeley and I, that chapter will start to make us understand, or help us understand like gender as a construct in this world. Oh yes, I made a little note here, that this is giving me major Dune vibes. So I wanted to mention that in case there are Dune fans out there who haven't read this. I mean, I'm only this far into it, but as of right now, it's giving me major Dune vibes. I think that's due to a lot of reasons. So like it's set on a world with like this harsh climate. There's also a lot of like politics, and this is a science fiction that was also written in the 1960s, so there might be just like something to be said about the style at the time, so that might be another reason it's giving me Dune vibes. And there is very, very dense world building, as there is in Dune. Not complaining about that, but it is kind of confusing. There's a lot of like made up words, and there's a lot of like places mentioned, and there's just like a lot of world building, and it's not meted out very much. She kind of hits you with a lot of it. Keeley and I both agreed that we would have benefited from a glossary and a map. That would have been nice, but I'm very much enjoying that so far. I just finished earlier today. It's Not About the Burqa. So this is a series of essays from Muslim women, and it's edited by Mariam Khan. I really enjoyed this overall. It's, well, I'll just read you a snippet, like what was in response to. In 2016, Mariam Khan read that the British Prime Minister David Cameron had linked the radicalization of Muslim men to the traditional submissiveness of Muslim women. Miriam didn't know a single Muslim woman who would describe herself that way, and there's kind of like this theme of people who talk about Muslim women usually aren't Muslim, and if they are Muslim, they're usually not women. So this was them sharing their thoughts in their own voice, their own perspective. So I very much enjoyed that. I won't talk about it more because I will talk about this in a wrap-up or a review or something later in the month, I think. I am also halfway through this collection of poetry by Caroline Duffy, which is very hit or miss. The first section, there were many more misses than hits. I've just read, though, quite a few poems that I really loved, so I'm hoping the rest of the collection will be a bit better for me. But yeah, this has been a very mixed bag. I do believe that this was Caroline Duffy's first collection of poetry, so I'm not like turned off. There was enough like really, really good poems in here to make me want to check out other collections of hers. But yeah, I might talk about this more later. I find it hard to really review poetry, but I may talk about that, I may not. So that's everything that I've read, have been reading. Now on to the rambly section. So what I have been thinking of this week, because I recently did some editing on my Goodreads TBR, so I wanted to talk about TBRs today. And I don't mean like those immediate TBRs you make for the month or for a readathon or for something specific. I'm talking about more so your long-term TBR, or just that list of books that I want to read at some point in the future, whether that's tomorrow or whether that's 5 years from now, like that list of books. So I wanted to talk about, for those of us who keep those lists, like whether it's on Goodreads or a journal or a spreadsheet or whatever, how we maintain those lists. So I like to keep my TBR number as low as possible. I'm someone who gets overwhelmed by clutter, physical clutter, but also like mental clutter. So I can't have too many things going on in my life. I'm very much a one thing at a time type of person. And even in terms of like lists or spreadsheets or like things I have to like keep track of things, I guess. I like those to be as neat and clean and concise as possible. So this extends to my TBR on Goodreads. That's where I keep track of like everything I want to read. And if that TBR gets too long, I get overwhelmed. And it's almost like a reminder that I am never going to read everything on my want to read list. And so if it gets too long, I kind of get that like, oh, I'm never going to be able to read all these books kind of anxious feeling. So I have about, I think, a little over 250 books on my Goodreads TBR. And knowing how much I can read in a year, obviously I cannot get through 250 books in a year. But I'm going to be continually adding things to that TBR every single year. So rather than allowing my TBR to kind of like grow uncontrollably, I cull, I guess you could say, my TBR periodically. I think this year I've probably culled it at least 2, if not 3 or 4 times. So I was just wondering if other people do this or how common or uncommon this is in the bookish community. So how I do this is I will go through my Goodreads like want to read list, and the first thing I do kind of like a quick sweep where I delete all those things that I've decided I'm just not interested in anymore for one reason or another. So it's really easy for me to just like get that off the list. So reasons I might not be interested anymore in those books might be I may have read other books by that author and have decided that maybe their writing is just not for me. So I just go through and I clean up everything by that author, or maybe I have read other books in the same like subgenre and have decided that that subgenre is not something that I'm particularly interested in, or maybe for nonfiction, maybe I've decided that that's not really a topic that I'm interested in anymore, or if there's like a problematic author that I just don't care to hear from them or don't want to support them or whatever, I might delete their books. So those kinds of things, those are the really like quick and easy ones to get rid of. Or if I've like seen a lot of bad reviews from people who have similar reading tastes to me, I'll just like delete those books. So those are the ones that are easy. And then I'm left with books that are a little bit harder to delete from my list. And And those are the books that, as I'm going through, I don't remember the book. I don't remember adding it. I don't remember what it was about, who I heard it from. These are harder to get rid of because maybe I would still be really interested in this book, but I just can't remember it. So these are probably things I heard about on someone's booktube channel, and I've just forgotten who I've heard recommend them or why. So for these ones, if I can't remember a book, I'll usually click on it and just read the blurb and see if like, oh yeah, that blurb sounds really interesting. I'm keeping this on my list. Oftentimes those blurbs are kind of vague or a little sparse. And depending on my mood, I might just like Google or do a little bit of extra digging on that book to see if it's something I might be interested in, or if I'm in a particularly like low energy mood or just can't be bothered, I'll just say, I don't know what this book is about, and delete it. So that's kind of like my round two. After I get rid of the books that are easy to get rid of, I'll go through and see if there's any that I don't remember that I can like just delete off that list. So I wanted to ask other bookish people out there how you handle your TBR. So like, first of all, do you keep track of your TBR like either on Goodreads or a journal or on your computer, wherever? Or does it just like live in your head? Or are you someone who doesn't keep like an official list but just reads on a whim, like, oh, that book looks interesting, and just kind of like you choose what to read in that way, and you don't really keep a list, like a running list of what you want to read? So that's my first question. My second question is, if you are someone who keeps a list of what you want to read, do you occasionally trim down that list, or do you just let it continually grow as you find out about other books that you want to read? So those are the questions that I want answers to. I'm very interested to know whether or not I'm in the minority or majority here, or maybe there's an even split between people who call or like maintain their TBRs and people who let their TBRs continually grow. So yeah, very interested to hear from you guys about this. I think I've rambled long enough, so we're going to cut it off there. And as always, thank you everyone for watching and for commenting. I really appreciate it, and I hope everyone's doing really well, and we'll chat soon. Take care.